Well, I just want to thank you all for coming out today, and thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today for this Atlanta Law Day 2014, where we are going to explore why every vote matters.
I want to welcome the folks in our Tifton office remotely and the folks in Savannah as well, who are high school students in the other areas of the state who are, hello there everybody, who are watching with us as well.
So basically what you have at your seats, you have some orange cards. And on those orange cards, you have an identity. And based on that identity is when throughout history you couldn't and you could vote. So at that time, white male wealthy property owners had the right to vote. In 1920, after many decades of protesting, women won the right to vote through the 19th Amendment to the Constitution.
People younger than 18, you vote every single day. Every single day. Connect with your communities, start a business, go to a school board meeting. These people vote on your schools and your facilities, and you don't have a say in it yet because you can't vote.
Did you know that you can register at the age of 17 and a half? You cannot cast a ballot until you're 18, but you can register at the age of 17 and a half years of age.
Now, I kind of want to circle back and have you all have the opportunity to look at the content of what was in a literacy test. These tests often had nothing to do with literacy, and they often had nothing to do with citizenship, and they were more designed to put whoever was taking the test through a mental test. And keep in mind, too, that voters often only had up to 10 minutes to take this test.
You would think that there was not any discrimination because that's the North. That was New York, where I'm from. And the discrimination was not throughout. It was on the managerial level. They discriminated when there was an oral exam for the managerial positions.
And I want everybody to set aside any thoughts of a partisan discussion, because voting is not a partisan issue. Voting is a very democratic issue.
As I'm sure everybody knows, that there are groups in the United States, the National Democratic Institute, the Carter Center, a bunch of others that go and monitor elections in other countries. In fact, there are other countries that come and monitor elections in the United States. In fact, the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, of which the United States is a member, performs election monitoring.
There is no question that there were states, including this one, that needed supervision. Section 2 said no minority vote dilution. The Section 5 states could continually find a way to get around any new federal regulation or law that had been passed.
First generation barriers to voting, like literacy tests, had been more or less gotten rid of, but second generation barriers like redistricting and gerrymandering and other types of things like voter ID laws need to be the subject of the Voting Rights Act still.
Given the recent Supreme Court decision regarding the Voting Rights Act, both the WikiLeaks as well as the NSA surveillance incidents, the ongoing denial and suppression of human rights across our country in a variety of areas, be that public education, food access, fair and secure housing, access to health care, and I don't mean health insurance, I mean health care, and many other areas that impact our ability to freely and fairly participate in the democratic process.
So typically we have anywhere from 10 to 150 people at any given time during an election observation. A much smaller core team over the several months before an election, but maybe a much larger group of people that come during the actual polling and voting itself to watch the polling procedures and counting procedures.
Governments that don't safeguard these rights create an environment that promotes repression, not freedom.
Any country in which most news media outlets are state-controlled is probably not going to meet my definition of a vital, high-functioning democracy.
So you have secret courts and secret proceedings, and these things, sometimes through no ill will, just spin out of control and create and become ecosystems of their own, which all the more underscores the need for legal access to these kind of things and laws that ensure the press is going to get access and that its interests are going to be taken into account.
Given that we are on the 50th anniversary here, why the Voting Rights Act was so important, and talk about why is it still needed today, if you do believe so?
Is it a matter of the billionaires being able to decide the future of voting in America, black or white, or will it in fact be that the decision is going to be made because we demand that it not be a matter of just those who have money buying out the rest of the nation?
The laws in the Voting Rights Act are still there. We've still got to follow them. It doesn't matter if it's the state, if it's a county or a city doing redistricting or what have you, they still have to follow the law. We're only talking about the pre-clearance issues that are here. And my personal opinion is, I think we should be all or nothing. There's been a lot of people in this country that have fought for equality and making sure that everybody had the same rights when it comes to voting and participation, and nobody applauds that more than I do. But I think it ought to be, I think all the states should be treated the same.
We've come a long way. Things are a lot better now than they were back in the 60s. But we still have issues. We still have problems. And the position of the department, my personal position, is I disagree with the Supreme Court's decision, but they're the Supreme Court, they get to decide. And we'll have to go, but I can tell you that this Justice Department is committed to, as aggressively as possible, enforcing Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act to ensure that every person has an opportunity to cast their vote.
The Law Day Committee has purchased a tile at the National Center for Civil and Human Rights in each of their names, and we'll present them with those certificates. And our moderator, Maria Saporta, received one of those last year, but we didn't want to leave her out this year. So for Maria, we have paid for her for a founding membership in the National Center for Civil and Human Rights.
Great, good.
So,
Thank you.